Yeah, dude, there's so many people buying leads, and it's just like a one and done transaction. Like they don't even keep up with them after they close, probably. It's just like, all right, where's my next payday coming? But dude, I'll say Crexy has been a nice way of getting me at least conversations with real buyers.
Yeah, that's huge.
In fact, I have a listing going to market tomorrow, or supposed to. And I was talking to this investor last week about another property I had listed on Crexy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just got to asking me, he basically told me he invests in commercial property, or really rental property, all throughout the Northeast Georgia area. And his play is, as long as he can buy something in cash flow, he doesn't really care what type of property it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that he does look at like future land value as a big part of it. And it's just kind of like a buy and hold strategy, and generating cash flow in the meantime. But anyways, I just alluded to the fact of this new listing I have coming to market tomorrow. And he's really interested. And in fact, him and his partner are like ready to make an offer on it. And
wow.
I've just kind of like told him all the details about it. And that kind of like made him trust me more, because it's like I'm bringing him something that's not even on the market yet. And just like, sharing as much detail as I can. Well, I have no idea what that offer looks like, but I'll say, I think that's a start of a potential relationship right there with this other buyer. So I don't know, but that's been like, I've not dealt with a lot of buyers. I'm about to go show a lot, supposed to today, depending on if the rain holds off. I'm supposed to show a lot today to a buyer I helped buy a lot last year, and he's wanting to buy another lot. So
wow,
just I guess have a good transaction, and then they remember you, and they randomly reach out to you. He bought a fishing lot last year, and he's looking to buy another fishing lot this year. So it's just like, I mean, those are obviously smaller deals, but it's like a really good relationship I've built with the guy, because he's actually an HOA manager of one of the largest communities in like the Salty Nakuchi area. And we're going to look at that today as well. He's been like eager to show me this neighborhood. So he's going to give me like the HOA president insights to this neighborhood that has a lot of activity. He wants me to get involved in the neighborhood. Like, he's just like, you should move here. You should sell property here. I want to show you all about it. I'm like, okay, yeah. You want to give me the insights, man? He's just a really nice guy. But,
interesting. Could you share your screen and show me where that community is?
Yeah, dude. I was actually just looking at some listings. Let's see. Let me get it pulled up here. Skylake. All right, let me share my screen.
I'm working on my first seller financing deal today.
Oh yeah, you were telling me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's taken forever to get all the details ironed out.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which makes sense. I mean, there's a ton of questions that, I mean, I had to even really think through, what do I need to think through as we like put this contract together. It's definitely been a learning experience. But there's so many terms that you have to set up before you can go to contract with seller financing.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, that's definitely going to be like an attorney involved, very involved transaction.
Absolutely. Right. Fortunately, I have a great attorney.
But that's good though, man, because seller financing allows, in the right scenario, for the seller to get a better deal and buyer to get a better deal.
Right. Totally. It's a win-win. It's creative problem solving is what seller financing is. But
Yeah.
this is only a 1-year balloon, so it makes a lot more sense for the seller than other situations. You know, if you do a 10-year seller financing situation, a lot more risk for both parties.
All right, so this is where it's at. It's like in between Helen and like the Clarksville area.
Yeah, that's beautiful, dude. That's an awesome
So it's up in the mountains, salty area, and properties has some history to it. I don't really want to go all the way into all the details, but it has some history. I'll let you and the audience do your own research on what this used to be, but Sky Lake, dude. So it has its own like I think there's 2 of them. Yeah, there's 2 little private lakes that you can like kayak and canoe at.
Awesome.
And then there's like a community. Let me see if I can't pull up like their page here. It's really pretty, dude. It's got like mountain views. It's got like a community center. So it's definitely an HOA or POA.
My YouTube channel is definitely tired of seeing Tampa Bay stuff. Nice to switch it up.
I really want to show you some of these photos, but I don't want to necessarily show you listings. Here's an announcement, committee board. Because there's like, I mean, dude, there's an indoor basketball court, there's pickleball courts, tennis courts.
Maybe just type it in Google and see if you can show some images.
Yeah, maybe I'll just go back and do images. Yeah, here you go. The pool.
Oh yeah, dude, that right there is sweet. Click on that.
Which one? This one?
Yeah, dude, I love how that kayak thing just overhangs the. Oh yeah, that's sick, dude. A kayak launch like that with the bar in the middle, right by where the kayaks are stored.
Yeah, dude.
That's something you can never do that in Florida because the tide changes are so drastic.
Oh yeah.
But that's sick. That's really cool in your neighborhood.
Like, I mean, it makes me want to move my family here. It's just like, you know, like I think there's like trails.
Yeah, the bridge even is really cool.
Really woodsy vibe to the place for sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So what property is your client looking at buying? Are they just trying to build something residential on it?
No, he's not looking in this neighborhood. He already owns a lot in here, and he's actually the POA president currently. He's just been like talking to me about this property forever, and he's been like eager to show me and like take me on a tour basically. So I'm gonna get a tour of that today.
Are homes done by the same builder, or is it just custom homes?
It's just custom, and like I mean, this community's been around a while, so it's like, you know, like some are even 80s built homes and so forth. But like indoor basketball court, which I would love, dude. I would love that. Like that would be life changing for me.
So join a Y, huh? They may not have a Y anywhere near Dawsonville.
Nah. Oh, there's one in Gainesville. I don't know if there's a Y in Dawsonville.
I've joined a few church gyms before to play indoor basketball.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Here in St. Pete, too, we have a ton of public parks that have indoor basketball, but that might just be a Florida thing because it's so dang hot.
No, there's at least in Northeast Georgia, like where I'm from, like you can definitely go to the rec center and just like hoop whenever. And it's free. And they don't even really like see if you're a resident. Like you just go and get a ball and you're good. Lumpkin County, they cared. They made me pay like $5 just to go shoot basketball because I wasn't a resident. It's just like, okay. Same with like, I guess universities like UNG, I'm pretty sure has like a $10 fee if you want to go use their facilities. I don't know how that works as an alumni. I'll have to check on that.
You know, this is an interesting conversation because I've seen a lot of new construction mega communities. You know how they're building those now. Like in Florida, they're building all these concrete lagoons where they're massive swimming pools that are literally a lake. And they have paddle boarding on it and all these other things. And I guess they're man-made pools. Man-made chlorine pools.
Dig out a tree.
I think about it all the time, though. Like for me, I mean, a pool is nice. Definitely, that's a nice amenity to have. I'm not going to say that that's probably the number 2 best amenity. But in my opinion, the number one best amenity you can have is something that none of these builders are building, which is natural parks.
Oh yeah.
You
Like
know, only the cities and the counties and the states are the ones like protecting and building natural parks around communities. And these new construction communities, while they are building pools and gyms and sidewalks for the golf cart, they're not building any sort of like a park or setting aside a certain amount of land untouched for nature lovers in the community.
are you talking about like
they have, like,
trails? Like, I guess, what do you mean by natural parks?
just like with trees.
Oh yeah.
Bro,
Well,
they're
I'll
just
say,
cutting
dude, like
all those trees down and then just leaving a big
yeah,
green space, which is like,
a lot of, that's an interesting topic because there's a lot of municipalities that actually encourage developers to keep green space like you're talking about.
yeah, but they cut
Um,
all the trees down and just plant sod, and it's like that's not for anyone except for dogs.
well, it's an interesting point, dude, because like I guess it's technically called like I believe it's called like a conservation development or something along those lines. I think different municipalities call them different things. But essentially, like let's say you have 100 acres for a flat number that's easy to do math on. And in that district, you have to have, I mean, this is like some smaller like places like Habersham County will have like 3-acre minimum lot sizes, which is ridiculous. And that developer could come in and put up as many as, in that case, what is that, 30, 100 divided by 3. Let me just make sure I'm doing my rough numbers here. 33.3. So that you could get 33 lots. And I guess with roads and everything and that much acreage, you might be lucky to get like 25 total lots, but you like literally clear out everything. Because I guess the roads take up acreage too. But what they're actually encouraging is that you can actually, like if you're on sewer, for example, you could drop it down to half-acre lot sizes and still get that same density. So you could still get 33 lots, but you could drop it down to half-acre lots, so it's a lot more affordable to develop. So you're just taking like a smaller section of it, and then you're leaving the rest as conservation land, and it stays that way forever, and it's just owned by the HOA. So they are encouraging it, and in fact, the neighborhood
that's nice, but conservation land doesn't have it doesn't have walkways and trails and stuff.
Yeah,
it's just,
I wish it would.
It's not really accessible. Like you're not going to walk with your kids through conservation land.
It's strictly just for like wildlife protection,
right, which is super important.
It's
important. And that is definitely a part of what I'm talking about. I just find that like here in St. Pete, my county in particular has already been built out. So there's really no new development plans. If there is any new development, it's typically a one-off. It's one building where they tore down 2 houses and built this, or it's one house where they tore down the old house and built an existing, or maybe it's an empty lot that got torn down 20 years ago and now they're redeveloping it. So the city and the county, though, like a long time ago, set aside certain parks, and those areas were never messed with, and they maintain it. So most communities, the amenity in your community is a centrally located in the community park with trees and sidewalks and walkways and maybe a pond. And, and I just find that none of the new construction communities in the surrounding counties where they do have land to build out, at least in my area, and I kind of noticed that in Georgia too, there's just no nature trails or hiking or anything like that. Like I remember one of the communities that I sold in, dude, actually, I can't remember the county now. Anyways, it was near Lawrenceville.
Yeah.
Is it called Lawrenceville?
Are you talking about, was it Jackson County? No, it wasn't Jackson County.
I don't remember which county it was in, but it was
Bartow? I don't know.
Haverhill is the name of the community. I literally forgot the name of the community too. Anyways, it had a nature trail in between the existing community that they had been building in for years and the new one that they're starting on. And you could walk back and forth. But the only reason why it existed was so the new community could share the pool. But anyways, that's a rare thing where you actually have like an outdoor area where people can hammock and, enjoy trees and nature and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Zeke, I encourage you, because now that we're talking about this, you'll be shocked. I was looking at the community me and you sold in the Gwinnett area.
Was that
And
Gwinnett County?
yeah,
Wow, dude, that's on the edge.
yeah, it's on the edge, yeah, for sure. But so I was looking back at it, like more on the tax assessors, site, and looking at the map on there just because I was curious. And the land in between the two sections of the neighborhood, that's
Mhm.
actually HOA owned land. So that's
Wow.
an example of the conservation use land I was telling you about
Okay.
just now. So they
And that
actually had
neighborhood got a lot of
like
deer
had
and
hundreds of it. Like it was close to like 200 acres of the 300
wow.
acre tract that they actually set aside. So I think that was actually considered kind of a conservation development, because they didn't just it was obviously unusable land. Like most of it was very low lying next to that creek that ran through there.
Mhm.
And then the rest of it backed up to 85, a highway. So it wasn't very desirable land, but they did assign like close to 200, if not 200 acres or more, for conservation technically. So I guess
Mhm.
in a lot of cases, like when a developer pitches that idea compared to the other, where they're just developing every square inch of that land, it's more likely to get passed in the right scenario, depending on like how many local residents show up with pitchforks and torches, so it can keep those people a little happier,
It
especially the
matters,
one.
dude, because new developments are built on the outskirts of town, and that's
Yeah,
all nature. So when they're built, the customer, the consumer, they look at it and they're like, "Oh, look at all these woods around us. Like, we don't need a
Mhm.
park in the middle of our area. We have all these woods everywhere. Like, there's so many woods. We just need to focus
Yeah,
on developing things within the woods." But
yeah,
then 10 years later, it's not like that at all. All the woods no longer exist, and they built neighborhood, 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 neighborhood. And now you have to drive 30 minutes to go see nature trails and trees and any sort of thing
yeah.
like that. So, I think even the neighborhood that we're referring to here, if you go just one exit back,
Hmm.
that whole area, that neighborhood, I can't, something Mills. What's the name of that
Hamilton,
one when you first get off the exits right there?
Hamilton Mill.
Hamilton Mills.
Yeah,
That area was the countryside,
yeah,
10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years
yeah,
ago.
for
And
sure.
they built that neighborhood and they had trees and stuff all around it. And now what's there? All shopping malls and retail. And dude, it's a absolute cluster mess.
Like I don't know if you've ever watched Yellowstone, but like how there's all those developers trying to like buy up their land to like convert it into a whole like city and airport and just like everything, like master plan community basically. um it's just crazy to me that like that actually exists in the real world, where like huge development companies plan on like just buying up an entire rural area to just like make a whole entire city out of it. And they have this and that and that, and this is how it's all going to work together. Now, oh, we need an airport because you got to get people here. And it's crazy in the Yellowstone, like how they present it, but that's practically how it works, dude. And I'm sure that's how cities came about throughout the
Mhm.
years that exist now. um
Do you think it's more important for the city to zone things off the bat in a way that they control the way the city is built?
yes.
Or do you prefer when people leave the permitting open and allow
Mm.
developers to kind of make those decisions based off of,
I
the
think
target market, I guess.
there's a guy that, so okay, I went to a Clarksville city council meeting recently, and they had a designer who's actually like designed um like actual, like kind of what I'm talking about here. He has like designed like cities entirely, and he has I guess been a part of like different hotel projects and like and so forth, of just like designing how it should look and how the different property types should like interact with one another. And he brought forward this idea that he thought should happen in the city of Clarksville, for example. because the city of Clarksville has actually been leaning on him to design a few things, particularly a property that the city owns that they're wanting to get developed. And he presented the idea of, he was actually kind of deferring, like he sounded like he didn't want to be like the guy that just designs it and then the city approves it and then it moves forward. He wanted it to be more of like a community involved decision where like they have, you know, a set time where the community goes and meets, where it's like residents of the community, city council members, local business leaders, just like everyone in the community that would have a say or care to have a say. And then they all kind of pitch their ideas of what they think should happen. And then they like kind of average all of those suggestions out and try to make it work. Obviously, you're not going to make everyone happy in that scenario, but I did think that it was an interesting take, and that's actually how he has developed. And I wish I could tell you which city he helped develop, but like he's literally developing it, like, you know, help design a whole city. And it does, I think it's very important to have the proper zoning and regulations and basically a playbook up front, because then it is, you know, a controlled growth and it's strategic growth. It's kind of like, you know, like think about Atlanta or LA, how terrible the traffic is now. And it's ultimately because those cities were developed in a way that wasn't controlled. It was very sporadic. It was just capitalism, just people, you know, just buying up land and building houses wherever they felt need. And there wasn't really any strategy to how the roads were put in or like what the future might look like and how that growth would be handled. And now, you know, look at how terrible the traffic is and all of that, because it wasn't like a well thought out design. And then you even like look at small areas like Clarksville, for example. Clarksville actually is set up on a block style grid, almost like New York City, in a very, very small scale. But it was actually developed by a lot of people that, I mean, it was a very wealthy area. And there would be a lot of crossover between like St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island, and people that also vacationed in Clarksville. There would be like a lot of a crossover there. So you could imagine like the type of money and sophistication that people had back in the early 1900s, if not late 1800s.
No, that's the key right there. If it was built before 1900, it's going to be a random jumbled mess of custom architecture and
that, or if there was money involved, for example, think about it. They were hiring the best architects at the time and like the people with the brains to like really, you know, see it through of like, how do we want the city to fully,
you're saying after 1900?
So it's almost like, you know, strategic. Was it strategized or not? Essentially, is kind of how I see it.
Almost all the newer cities in America though have like a grid pattern that makes sense, and all the older ones are just jumbled mess. Like you look at Chicago versus Boston, right? Chicago and Boston, those cities are like, I mean, Boston's older, but they both became big cities in America, similar time frames. But the difference is Chicago completely burned to the ground in 1912, and they rebuilt it with modern city planning techniques. And Boston never burned to the ground. And now you go in Boston, it's like their subway system doesn't connect to everything, so you have to take public buses. Driving is a nightmare because all the streets are made for horse and buggy. And it's just like the whole downtown's disconnected, this area to this area to this area. Whereas Chicago is just one seamless transportation system of rail above ground subways. And it makes so much sense. My city here in St. Pete, it was largely developed in like around 1920-ish is when they I think a little earlier than that, they brought in the railroads, and then around 1920, they started building all the streets. And they set it up in a way where, like, even after the Great Depression and during that time when development stopped, they still were fine. They'd already laid out such a good grid pattern that even though it took years to fill in all the spots, and the architecture is so different from house to house because of that. It could be 80 years in between this home being built and the one next to it. But it's all worked out to where it's now the densest county and
Would you say that so like you don't experience much traffic down there on average? Or
well, we have traffic, mostly though because our infrastructure supports the amount of people that live here full time. It doesn't really, yeah, it's a little bit not quite there to support the winter influx of snowbirds, which we have a 33% or somewhere around that number increase in population during the winter season. That's our main season. And so like, yeah, during the winter, you're like, man, traffic sucks here. It's terrible. But then during the summer, there's nobody on the roads. And I will say, like, our county compared to Tampa is way better. You're never in standstill traffic on the interstate. Whereas Tampa, or coming across that bridge, dude, it could take an hour to get across.
Oh, wow. Okay.
15-mile bridge or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, it sounds like it was better thought out than the Atlanta area.
But here's the thing that I find interesting about St. Pete in particular. Even though everything, all the roads and stuff and the city design from like a basic standpoint was determined in the early 1900s, the zoning they kept wide open. Wide open, dude.
So and when? Is it still like that? Or?
Yes. I mean, they're changing it, but it's one area at a time, declaring this a historic area so that nothing can change, declaring this a historic area so nothing can change, changing single family areas to multifamily so that they can build ADUs or create a higher density closer to downtown. But for the most part, dude, it's been wide open. So only like groups of motivated lawyers and conservationists are the only ones like fighting the battle to. And
I'm not a, you know, I'm all about property owner rights. I do think that's, you know, do what you wish with the land you own. I mean, we're the land of the free at the end of the day. But I do think that in a way, even as a developer, sometimes you prefer there to be a very specific rule book. So you know whether something is possible or not whenever even analyzing a piece of property. Because ultimately what zoning allows for is like, it's a pathway to get what you want, essentially. You know, you follow XYZ and you can do it. And actually, in fact, if something is allowed per that zoning book, there is nothing that municipality can do to stop it because it is legally allowed. Versus if there's no rule book, you're essentially up against whoever's on city council or the county commissioners if it's unincorporated areas. And it's just whatever they're feeling. And it could totally be, you know, small town politics, which happens in the Northeast Georgia area, for example, where, you know, those people that sit on those councils or, you know, the board of commissioners have local businesses, or they have friends and family that have local businesses where said whatever proposed change or whatever would negatively affect them or positively affect them. You know, it's just, in my opinion, I would much rather just have a very clean, you know, almost developer's Bible, if you will. Just like a clear path forward. So that way, like, people's opinions aren't so involved.
Right. Well said. Well said. Because people do seem like when it isn't very defined, then everyone's got an opinion, and the people that have lived here 70, 80 years, those people are very vocal on their opinion of what should or shouldn't be there. And it's like, it does create some conflict in the community. Whereas if it was already predetermined, hey, this is for a major luxury condo building, then maybe people wouldn't care as much. Yeah. But dude, one thing I want to say here is that it's really surprised me how important your voice is when it comes to this in particular. Yeah. Like especially as a realtor, man, it's so important to go to these meetings and to understand more about and to shake hands with the people that are really fighting the good fight for zoning to make sure that the city doesn't lose its character. Those are important people to get to know and to learn from. For sure. And eventually in my career to take their place and to fight the good fight in their stead. Yeah, dude. I think, you know, like my broker sits on city council of Clarksville. She's very involved. I go to city council meetings and
through going to those, I have found how valuable it is, not only as a realtor, but just a local resident, to be there and just understand what's being said. And if not even going there in person, they usually broadcast them online to watch at any point later. But like, for example, local to me in Habersham County right now, they've been looking at implementing this new unified development ordinance, and that's basically put a pause on all development in the county for the past like 6 to 8 months. I don't know exactly when it went into effect, but if you have a piece of property, like I have clients right now that they had development plans with it, you're essentially just on pause until this thing's passed or revised or whatever they're going to do with it. But ultimately they gave till like July 21st of this year to where the commissioners have to make a decision where that ordinance can't go beyond that, basically, or that moratorium, can't go beyond that. But they have been basically re-looking at the rules that they set in place many years ago, and I guess has been revised periodically. But they even had like a third-party consulting firm like kind of draft up what they thought just based off of all their opinions and everything. And they've had multiple town hall meetings, which I have been a part of, just to like understand where their head's at and how this is going to affect, my client's land, for example. And then just like fully understanding like the trajectory of like where that's heading. Because ultimately what's happening, Zeke, is every single property owner in Habersham County, their property is getting rezoned. Every single one. So that's like a huge issue. And, per the county, they have advertised that in the newspaper and they put it online, via Facebook and so forth. But they have not sent like direct mailers to people like they do with property taxes. So it's either you've heard about it or you haven't, but they've legally done everything that they need to let the public know, which is like the absolute bare minimum. It's kind of crazy how little it is. But so that's, I've been reaching out to people just to let them know, inform them of the changes coming.
I guess that really matters if you own land, right? But if you own a house, then it's going to be grandfathered in. So the only time it would affect you is if you had a natural disaster, like a tornado or something, then you maybe couldn't build back, or you have to build back.
But you got to think like there's people that have owned land in the county for generations, and some of these people own hundreds of acres. And up until now, when they're not looking to sell, but they just like I do, they like to have options as a property owner. They don't want to be told what they can and can't do. But for example, like with this new ordinance, like let's say you have 100 acres and you have 4 kids and you want to like sliver them off each an acre. Technically you're going to have to go through the subdivision process. And if that land is zoned ag where the 3-acre minimum lot sizes, then, you might be able to do 3 in a 3 years time, but you might have to wait another 3 years to get that 4th one subdivided. So it's just, I don't know, dude. I don't like how they're like telling people what they can and can't do. And some of these people aren't even aware. And like, for example, the 100 acres, if it was previously 1 acre minimum lot sizes, that's a big difference whenever it comes to selling to a potential developer or developing it yourself compared to 3 acres. That's like a third of what it could have been, But I get it, they're doing it for specific reasons. Like they're trying to limit development on the north end of the county because, that's like the watershed area. That's where most of the county's water comes from. So they're trying to preserve the land how it is. And most of that's farmland anyways. But it's just limiting people as far as what they can and can't do, which I have a little bit of an issue with. And just the fact that all the properties are getting rezoned is a little bit concerning. But I will say in another way, it is going to be easier and better to develop because you have a very clear set of rules, which is nice. Because go on.
Yeah, since I was in Georgia selling houses, which I guess I left in 2023, have there been any foreign purchaser laws or restrictions that have been put on in Georgia? in Florida, we've had a lot of that. A lot of communist countries can't buy these properties. And the rules just keep getting stricter. You can't buy this kind of agriculture unless you fit this description. Mostly geared towards limiting foreign entities from purchasing land that's either agriculture, very important agriculturally, or very important from a military standpoint, or even a like terrorism standpoint. Like if it's too close to a power plant or too close to then it's just like you have to be a U.S. citizen to be able to purchase this land. Have they done anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of, honestly. There was something, I mean, they were, you saw the FinCEN stuff that they were trying to do with businesses in general, where essentially you had to like register with FinCEN, but I think that they like reversed that decision. That was like the closest I had seen to anything like that affecting Georgia.
Georgia has so many international buyers.
Yeah, dude, because that FinCEN thing, I mean, it was crazy, dude. We were going to have to report any transaction that involved an LLC or an entity of any kind, and you would have to basically have the closing attorney like draft up some like paperwork to submit to FinCEN.
As of March 31st, we do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's my understanding that they actually reversed that decision, so that's no longer required. But that was going to be a requirement this year. I don't know. Maybe Florida's different, but
no, I'd heard the same thing, dude. That was going to be a requirement this year, and the date was like in March. But I haven't heard anything since. And I did sell a home that was in an LLC, and I don't remember anything special about it.
Well, that sounds to me that sounds more like an attorney and that specific entities thing.
Well, we have a lot of illegal drug money laundering here. And it sounded to me like that was the reason why it was coming to Florida. But now you got me thinking maybe it was a national thing, not a state thing.
I think the FinCEN thing was a national thing. But no, dude, you'd be like amazed. I feel like there's so much like laundering that happens in real estate. You just like never know it at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in my market, dude, so much of Tampa is built off of illegal activity. Casinos, strip clubs, drug money. I mean, dude, it's always been a pirate town.
Do you also have those like arcade things that were like in a gray area? Where like adult arcades where you had to like I don't even know how they work, but like you got store credit if you won, but you could
that sounds like a Georgia thing. They just let the money flow here. Florida literally was Las Vegas before Las Vegas. It was. And for a long time, it had that reputation. And it wasn't really until like the 60s or 70s that we had a mayor of Tampa that was running for governor. And he used like cleaning up this area as his platform of, look at what I've done to Tampa. I can do this for the rest of the state. So he took it real serious. And that made some permanent changes and law changes and stuff that have cleaned up Tampa. I mean, there's still a pirate culture. We celebrate Gasparilla, and there are definitely people that live on the beaches just drunk by 10 a.m. every day. But it's not the Vegas that it once was.
Let's switch it up here. I had a few questions I wanted to ask. So what would we do with $100,000 today if you were to just like have $100,000 fall in your lap as an investor, or just like as someone that like someone in your exact shoes? What would Zeke Walters do with $100,000 today?
I would do what I wish I had done when I was just graduated college, which is start a autonomous, small, very simplistic business model, whether that's a cleaning service where I hire maids and create an AI system that does a lot of the admin for me. Or maybe it's a realtor signpost rental company where I deliver the signpost that you put your listing sign on. But some kind of very simplistic, very autonomous business where I outsource all the labor and just focus on making the calls and advertising. That's what I do with $100,000 now. I wouldn't buy an asset that I would hope brings passive money. I don't think $100,000 is enough for a safe enough asset like that. Although like a vending machine or a ice station or something like that is still, a pretty good option there. I would focus more on a service-based industry with my 100 grand and build a very small, simplistic, couple orders a week business. What about you?
Well, before I answer mine, I want to kind of go back to, I remember when we worked together, you were contemplating purchasing that golf range, the driving range.
Oh yeah, the driving range.
I kind of want you to talk through that deal and like what ended up coming of it and like what you found out, because that to me like almost felt like I thought you were going to go there with it, something like that maybe.
Me too, dude. The only reason why I did not is because I didn't want to live in Georgia for the rest of my life, and that looked like a 10 to 20 year commitment easily.
Oh really?
Yeah, just like there was a lot of value add. I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I was trying to decide, do I want to stay in Georgia and build my real estate career there or move to Florida? I wanted to be in Florida, but I was willing to stay in Georgia. I mean, Georgia's a great state. I have nothing against Georgia. I just wanted to be on the water. I wanted to be in a coastal area, and I wanted higher price point homes to be able to sell, luxury real estate. And I felt like, wow, there are opportunities for luxury real estate in Georgia, especially in Northeast Georgia. The average sales price is much lower than it is here in Florida. So those are kind of the major factors. And I felt like I was at a position where I could move anywhere and have plenty of time to build a career.
Yeah.
But in exploring my options to stay in Georgia, one thing I looked at was there was a driving range, which I'm a big time golfer. And I also think the business model for driving ranges makes so much sense. But there's a driving range near where I lived over in, I think, Jefferson County. And it was also near the battery plant, which at that time had such a shortage in housing that they were literally renting out all the hotels in the area to house all the workers. Now, I'm not sure.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah, at the time, you couldn't get a hotel room on any of those exits because they're all completely booked solid with semi-permanent workers.
So the driving range was in Commerce or around Commerce? Okay.
It was near the Commerce Mall. It was right off the interstate, easy access for anyone in that area. It was, I can't remember how many acres, but let's say it was 10 acres. But only like one of those, or 1.5 acres, was the driving range. So it was actually a small driving range where even though the back line could be extended, it was kind of sitting in a way where like you really couldn't use your driver. Like I think the back of the range was only like 270 yards or something, or 250 yards. So not that long. That was definitely a con. It kind of seemed like you'd need some nets or you'd just be losing golf balls like crazy. It had like 8 or 9 slots that were covered to hit off of, and then a few extra slots on the side. They had an area for a putting green, but the putting green was in terrible shape. There's some electrical issues. There's a house that sat on the property, which I could live in, which was also a big part of the financials of the deal.
That's huge.
Okay, well, I'm actually buying a house that I can live in or even rent out potentially. And then the driving range had an autonomous setup to it where it had a water station. You could get the balls through some machine that she was outsourcing with a company where you pay them a certain monthly fee. They bring the machine in and then you make all the profit. So the lady that was running it was an older lady. She was like in her 70s or 80s, and she was trying to get out. And she had been using the house to actually house domestic violence cases against women, like women that were trying to escape an abusive spouse or whatever.
That's awesome.
But she was just at an age and stuff where she just couldn't maintain it anymore. So what we were talking about was me coming in and setting up a seller finance deal.
Yeah.
It was kind of vague and stuff. We never really came to specific terms, but it seemed like the property was going to be valued somewhere around 300 to 500K. And yeah, again, never set a price or anything like that. But I really looked into what it would look like acquiring the business, what the seller financing situation would be like, all the maintenance that would go into it, the profitability of the driving range. And it definitely did make sense. The numbers did make sense. It wasn't going to be super profitable earlier on, but like I said, tons of value add opportunities. You could totally add more mats. You could totally extend the back of the driving range. You could totally add more parking. Plenty of room to make the putting green bigger. The house itself could easily be improved into a much nicer home. You could even open up part of it for guests and stuff. It was just a really special property because it was already profitable in its current situation, and yet had so much value add. But ultimately,
Zeke, who was responsible for picking up the balls? Like, did she do that, or did she hire someone?
she hired somebody.
Okay.
Which I would probably just do that myself. I'd probably do all the work myself.
Was that the company she hired with the ball machine, or a separate guy? Okay.
Yeah, just a neighbor.
Yeah, dude, that was I remember you coming into work one day and you just like plopped that on my desk. I was like, dude, that sounds fun.
It made so much sense. And as a realtor too, the amount of people that go out there that I could then use my platform to prospect for business.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, that could have almost been like a brokerage office right there.
Yep. And growing area and everything. But there were other cons that I considered that were problematic, like the fact that across the street was some kind of like feed mill where it was pumping out like this loud sound for like 6 hours every day. And then the smell was interesting. I wouldn't say it was like bad, but it definitely, there's a reason why that area.
Hey, if you can hit a straight drive under those conditions, I mean, that's pretty good practice right there.
Well, the lady that owned it wanted to develop the back half for residential.
Oh, okay.
Like behind the community. Which obviously would make more customers for the driving range. But with the smell and that sound of the feed mill, I don't know that that's going to be all that successful.
Oh, man.
So she was really trying to sell me on the whole idea to get me to buy more of the land, not just the driving range. And I don't know. I thought about it, dude, and it would have made a lot of sense if I wanted to stay in Georgia. But ultimately, just like thinking about the fact that probably the first 5 years or 10 years wouldn't be all that profitable, and I'd be stuck in Commerce, Georgia. I don't know. It didn't. I regret it now because I think that'd be a cool lifestyle, and for the right person, that's a sweet deal. But
do you know if she still owns that?
Probably. I don't know.
Dude, I might have to get her contact info from you.
Yeah, you should.
Dude. Because what I found out, I was looking at a 10-unit apartment deal that's, I believe, still on the market in Commerce right now. Really not far from what you're talking about. It's like gated, and it's a pretty solid operation. And what I found out, dude, is Jackson County right there is the population to housing units. It is like the #1 in Georgia as far as like they need more housing units. You know what I mean? Like there's just not enough. The ratio of that is like the lowest in all of Georgia. So I feel like to be a landlord there, owning rental property, kind of like to your point, you were just talking about they were having to use hotels as housing units. I feel like that's an interesting market to be in because it sounds like they're really trying to limit development every way in Jackson County. So that was kind of an interesting takeaway, just hearing you talk about that.
Dude, what's really interesting about Jackson County, just side note, is the amount of country singers that have come out of there. It is a tiny little county. And yet, dude, there's so many famous people that were born in Jackson County.
I couldn't name one. Who? Like, can you name any?
Yeah, let me look it up. I don't want to mess it up.
Little side note, I'm not even really a country music fan. My wife is.
Well, there you go.
That's what's his name? Is it Sam Hunt? Is that the name? Is that a guy? I could be wrong here. Is that a country music singer, Sam Hunt?
Yeah, Sam Hunt's a country music singer.
Okay. Yeah, so my dad actually went to high school with his dad. And that was just like a small world connection that I guess that's like the closest to knowing anything about where someone in country music is from, probably. But What would I
Okay,
do with 100 grand? Let me see here, Zeke. I would definitely find a property, or yeah, definitely one bigger property to put that in. Um, I mean, traditional financing that could buy you something worth 500,000. Or if you're going in as a partner with someone, depending on how many partners you have, that could be 1 million to even more purchase price. So yeah, I would try to find a deal that ideally I could sell or finance, and just get really good terms on. I mean, ultimately, I think you can make a lot happen with that money and investing. It's just obviously finding the right deal is
right.
going to be the hardest part.
And the right partners.
Yeah, and the right part. Well, I will say I do have some people in my sphere that are like hitting the green light. They're ready to go. In fact, my brother-in-law sends me deals almost daily. He's like, check this out. And then I run the numbers and I'm like, probably not, man. Probably not going to work out. What's something, I guess, would you say that that's the one deal? Would you say you regret passing on that deal?
No, I
Okay.
don't. It was a little bit too much to bite off. It was just a little too like career pre-defining.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to tackle a big business thing like that unless you're 100% committed. And I think
Yeah.
I was more like 50% committed. Like I saw a business opportunity. I saw like that my financial situation at the time was going to be, good enough to make it work. But dude, I wasn't going to have any off days or anything like that. It was going to be all consuming. I was just going to be Zeke from Zeke's driving range more
You
than
don't
anything.
you don't think that there was ever an ability to like get it up to par to where you could just hire someone to be you in that business?
Eventually, dude, but like it wasn't going to make financial sense until then.
Yeah, unless you did it. Got it.
Yeah. Like
That's how a
really,
lot
like
of these,
$250 for someone to mow the lawn, or I just go mow it. I mean,
dude,
just
that's
like it would be really tough unless you had the extra money or the extra income to outsource it for you to justify spending money for other people to take care of the property, especially if I was going to live there, which was the plan. Yeah.
the thing is I don't want to be in property management. So I really do try to underwrite rental properties as if I'm paying a full 10% to someone every month based on the total rent amount, 10% of that every month. And that's usually the deal killer right there. I mean, if you self-managed, a lot of times it could pencil, but then it's like, do I want to be on the hook 24/7, no matter where I'm at, no matter where I'm sleeping, no matter what I'm doing, that someone could just call me with a headache? And I know that there's rental property softwares that can help. You just submit a ticket through whatever app, and it's probably better that way because it's documented. But still, you have to ultimately go see that ticket, see what's going on, and that may only happen once every couple months, but it's just something that I don't know that I want to take on. I do think property management is very important, and it definitely helps you learn the business. Starting out, first property might actually make sense for me to self-manage, especially numbers wise, so I could increase that NOI and still cash flow year one and year two, but and then hire someone out whenever you've increased everything. But I don't know, it just doesn't excite me to get into property management. I want to be more on the asset management side, where you're almost the manager of the manager, and just in charge of the entire ship. So, but yeah, I would say out of everything that I've placed an offer on, there's one quadplex deal that I think if I went back, I would have tried to make the numbers work more along the lines of what the seller was at. Because even if we paid full asking price, the place would have definitely cash flowed day one. The biggest risk was that it was a converted office, and some of the bedrooms were real funky and definitely not up to like fire code, for example. There wasn't windows in the bedrooms. And like they were half walls. Like, how some office buildings will just be like an 8-foot tall wall, but like the ceiling goes all the way up to like 20 feet, and it's just like there's nothing in between. That's kind of how those bedrooms were set up, and I know that that's not up to fire code. So it just made me a little nervous. And like one of the units, for example, had the electrical panel in the bathroom, like above the toilet, which that's like 100% not right. So passing on it, like, I don't know. I'm still torn on that one because like the numbers were so good, and even if we took out like a traditional debt service coverage ratio loan paying 7.3% interest rate, it still would have cash flowed. But it was just the unknown of like, how expensive would it be to convert those things, and like how expensive would insurance be because of these weird quirks it has, and just the liability of owning an asset where people are living in it, and just knowing that there's hazards you got to worry about from day one. That made me a little uneasy. So I guess I don't regret it, but that's the closest to regretting passing on a deal, I think.
Okay, let me ask you this: if you couldn't spend it on real estate,
okay,
how would you spend your $100,000?
I would go, honestly, dude, I would go find a very boring business that's service based, like
That already exists.
Yeah, that already exists. That like a plumbing business, electrician,
Roofing, man.
you know, something like that. I would go buy a very boring business that requires, people's hands. Because I ultimately think that the blue collar workers like that, those businesses are going to do very well the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Like there's going to be a lot of millionaires that are electricians and plumbers. And in fact, I think that there's going to be a lot of private equity in that space, where the ones that can like get their business up, to it all profitable, and like, maybe they have like 5 or 10 electricians under their belt, all in the same company. And they're just going to sell it to private equity. And I think private equity are going to pay like at least an 8 multiple on the EBITDA. And they're just going to, private equity is just going to keep buying up all these small companies that are in that space. And they're just going to be, owned by these giant companies that it looks like that small company is still, running independently, but it's ultimately owned by someone else. I see that happening. But yeah, I would definitely buy an existing business, because you can at least look at how it's being ran, and you can get that current owner to show you exactly how to run it. In fact, a lot of cases, I'm sure some of them would stay on it as an employee for the first year or two, maybe even 3 years. To just stay in the business running it.
So you're talking about buying it from a pretty small size and then building it a little bit and then selling it to a larger entity? Because you said earlier that you think a larger entity would take someone that only has like 5 electricians.
Yeah, I mean,
so if it already exists, why wouldn't they just be charging you top dollar as though you're one of the large companies?
Well, I'll say, like, you can go on websites right now and look at businesses like this for sale. I can't really name one off the top of my head, but they're out there. It's just people like there's going to be so many people. Like, for example, think about most of these businesses right now, and this is a fact. Most businesses like this that we're talking about are owned by boomers, and they're getting up there in age. And the boomers that have kids, a lot of these kids don't even want the business. Like, they don't want to run that.
No,
they're not interested at all. And so someone's got to buy them. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of these owners are going to be savvy enough to find private equity firms to really take it out. I'm sure that private equity firms are being sharks right now and like just going and dialing for dollars on any of these types of businesses.
Totally, dude. Sure that's everyone, right? Dude, they ain't even dialing anymore. They're just throwing it into some kind of AI generated app and blasting text messages.
Yep. So anyways, I think that there's just going to ultimately be people like that even get to that age and then they pass, and then none of their heirs want to run the business anymore, for example. I think there's going to be a lot of scenarios like that where the business is still intrinsically valuable and there's still electricians that work in that business, for example. but they don't know how to run it. They don't understand the business operations of it. They don't understand the marketing. They just understand how to go to a, where they're told and do the work, and then, upsell them where they can. But I do see that there's going to become a lot of businesses like that are hitting the market soon, through almost like a distress sale.
No, I think that's actually really good insight. It's interesting though. I don't see the same happening with homes being inherited. I don't see people in our generation trying to sell the homes that they inherit from the grandparents. I think they're just going to live in them, dude.
I could see a lot of that, but then there's also going to be a lot of undesirable houses. I've heard people talk about this, where it's just like no one wants to freaking live in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's either just so old and worn down that it needs a lot of work, and those family members don't have the money to fix it up. So it's just like almost a distress sale in that way. I think the hardest thing is going to be getting everyone on the same page as far as what to do with the property, because ultimately, a lot of these cases, it's going to go to like two or three siblings.
Totally.
And in most of those cases, they're going to all agree to sell, because it's going to be hard to like have one person buy out the other two, for example. If that doesn't make sense in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think like you look at the next decade, dude, it would definitely benefit us to be involved with foreclosures, as well as being involved in estate attorneys, because there's going to be a lot of both. People, credit card debt is historically high right now and continuing to grow. And then, inflation, historically high, continuing to grow. But the job market is definitely not. It's not pacing at the same rate.
Yeah. And then also there's shadow debt. I don't know if you've heard that term, but there's a lot of shadow debt right now, and shadow debt is essentially the Klarna, or the pay in 4 installments, the stuff that doesn't necessarily go on your credit score. You know what I mean? But it's like they're just calling that shadow debt because there's apparently a lot of that going on right now, where it's not on a credit card, it's not on this type of loan. It's
buying some on Walmart through a firm or whatever it's called.
Or on layaway. You're going to Aaron's to buy your washer and dryer on layaway, or I just feel like there's a lot of that type of stuff going on, because ultimately, like, there's a lot of like even jewelry and just like random stuff that people buy when they don't actually need it. But the only reason people bought it is because they didn't have the cash, but they could do it in a 4 to 6, installment plan.
Right.
And even medical debt. I think some of that's not even necessarily on the credit.
Right.
And you can do it like on a 12-month installment plan, for example.
And the job market not being as good as it was in the past, and a lot of lawyers and doctors graduating with debt and not being able to find a good job.
Yeah.
So, I just see the foreclosure market growing, maybe not super significantly, but certainly growing. And then I also see, just this generation of boomers dying and passing on their property to younger kids. That's going to happen. It's supposed to be the biggest wealth transfer in history.
Yeah, for sure. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it's like right around 70% of all the wealth in America today is owned by the boomers.
Yep. So it's going to get passed down.
Yeah, it's got to be. And a lot of times, taking on that estate is it's a long process, but ultimately it's going to cause a lot of people to sell things, whether it's a business, whether it's just assets in general. Because imagine
if you inherit a big property from grandma and you have credit card debt, crippling credit card debt, you're definitely going to sell it. Use some of the proceeds to pay off your credit card debt. Use some of the proceeds to go to savings, and then buy a smaller home or rent.
Yeah, because the issue isn't they actually get like a step up in basis from my understanding. I'm not an accounting professional here, but my understanding is whenever that person passes and whenever you receive that as an heir, like let's say grandma paid for her, $10 grand for her home, back in 1930, but now it's worth 500 grand. Whenever her grandson received that after her death, I get it at the cost basis of 500 grand. I don't get it at the 20. So you don't pay all that capital gains tax, which is awesome. But you're going to have to pay taxes. You're going to have to pay, probably insurance, or if she had a note on it, you're going to have to pay that. And in a lot of cases, that's just not going to make financial sense to hold on to. So I'm probably just going to put it on the market, maybe even list it at 450, even though it is worth 500, just to guarantee that it moves, because I can't afford to pay these taxes when that hits, or I can't afford to pay this or that, or the maintenance. So I'm just going to get it gone. So I do see a lot of inventory hitting the market, and actually at a discount because of that. I don't necessarily think too many foreclosures personally will come of that. I think that most of that's just coming because of like the 2020 to 2022 era of people buying houses overinflated and under, the 3% interest rate, and they got a 5-year arm to where now they're getting absolutely screwed on the payment. I think that's where majority of that's coming from.
Yeah.
But I still don't think that that's enough to really like push the needle to where there's going to be a reduction in home values.
I don't know about reduction. I actually think that the foreclosure market won't impact the rest of the housing market for the most part.
Yeah.
I think it'll grow without the prices of homes decreasing much.
Yeah. I think the biggest factor that could drop prices is this whole wealth transfer we've been talking about, because the heirs received that property and they just want to get it gone.
They just need to sell.
And so you have all this inventory hitting at a discount. And that's really the ultimate way I see, if prices are going to drop in the next 5 years for any reason at any significant rate, it's going to be that. Mixed with the fact that a lot of these properties are undesirable and nobody wants them.
Yeah. Oh, and now I just forgot what I was going to say.
You were going to say, let me ask you that. It was about maybe grandma's house, or
have you noticed any appraisal issues?
No.
Me either.
In the commercial space, I mean, I can tell you, there's been like one scenario. I don't even want to go too much into detail, but appraisals in the commercial space don't really hold as much weight, in my opinion. I guess raw land technically, but it's just tricky whenever it's like a development site where like the land value or the property value is actually worth more with the absolute tear down structure on it, compared to now after paying to get it demolished. It's technically worth less because it's just land and they can't use comps based off other surrounding buildings.
Right.
But I think that the right investor would be able to see that, okay, it was worth this whenever that structure that needed to be torn down regardless was on it. So that plus the cost to remove that structure is now what the development site, not raw land, I look at it as a development site, is worth. That's been like the closest thing to an appraisal issue I've seen lately. Most times, I mean, dude, it's rare to see an appraisal not come in at value, like right on the dot. It's
would you say that your average price for a sold home has decreased since 2022 more or less than 10%? From the peak of the market in Atlanta to where it's at today, is that more or less than a 10% decrease?
I'd have to look at, and every little sub-market's different.
Yeah.
And it's really going to only go off of sold data.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, dude.
If you look at a property and you're like, oh, it sold for this in 2022, about what is your expectation of the price? Just guessing off the data from then to now. I
mean, I would say it hasn't gone up as much as the seller thinks it has.
Gone up? What? Mine's about a 12% decrease since 2022.
Since 2022 on average, where you're at. Wow.
I think so.
Wow. That's not good.
No.
There's definitely been cases where, I mean, we've seen appreciation in my market year over year.
Wow.
Regardless of these rates. It's kind of crazy.
Wow. So it's slowed down, but it's still selling for higher.
Yeah. And even on a national level. Yeah. On a national level, it's been that way too, technically.
Wow.
But again,
So
again,
my market is definitely adjusted,
yeah.
but it's still not
Well,
enough. Still more
mhm,
adjusting to do.
yeah. What are some finishing thoughts here, Zeke? Because I gotta actually run here. I got an appointment coming up at 12:30, and I got about an hour car ride here.
Oh, yeah.
So what are your final predictions here? Where do you think I guess what are some conclusions from today's conversation? If you had 100 grand, you would yeah, I guess what would you tell the audience? Not take our
Oh, with your
situation out.
100 grand?
Yeah, yeah. The audience has 100 grand and they're looking to do something with it. They don't know what to do with it. And this
I would
isn't
gamble
financial
on the
advice. This is
weather.
just opinions. You would what?
Gamble on the weather on Kalshi. You can get pretty good odds. All you got to do is just hit a couple days in a row, dude. You could double your money.
Not financial advice. This is just opinions of two guys talking.
Kalshi,
But oh my
please
god,
sponsor me.
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Probably I really think that they messed up in my college education. I was trying to learn about business, startup, and entrepreneurship, and even just sales in that way. And I just feel like they way overcomplicated it in college. They basically told me that if you want to make money in business, you got to have some ingenious idea, and you got to scale it right off the bat, and it's got to be cutting edge and better than anyone else has done it.
Yeah,
And
this is how you crowdfund, and this is
true.
yeah,
If you want a successful business, you should pick an industry that it's already working. You should model after a business that's already successful in a space that has tons of demand and is proven. It even has tons of competition. That's a good sign. That means that there is demand for it. And just keep it as simple as possible. You don't need to scale. You don't need to have employees. You don't need to you don't need to finance. You just need to start small and slowly grow with the profit that you're making. Think of the simplest business you can possibly come up with. Renting kayaks, anything, just the simplest business ever. If you're a good painter, just focus on painting and selling at your local market. If you're like t-shirt designs, try to find a store that's going to sell them. Like, do the least amount of overhead as possible. Don't buy your own warehouse. Don't buy your own machines.
Do it out of your garage, your mom's garage.
Keep your overhead costs as low as possible. Keep your business plan as simple as possible. Pick an existing business that already works. You don't have to be an inventor to create a successful business model. This is what I wish someone had told me in college. I would have picked a very, very simple business model, and I'd probably have it in full operation, autonomous by this point.
Yeah. Well said, man. Yeah, like my 2 cents on the college experience, now that you're talking about it, is every single class, I felt like even the entrepreneurship class I was in was taught from an employee perspective. I mean, everything was just pitched to me of how to go and be a good employee and how
it's all about getting a job.
Go to corporate route, how to sound good in an interview, and but none of it's really talking about how to provide value to the marketplace, which is ultimately what you need in any of it. And then one thing that stood out to me with my entrepreneurship class is we had to come up with we had a project. It was a group project for the semester, and you had to come up with a business plan, and then how that would be executed essentially. And you had the whole semester to work on it with your peers. And I came up with an app idea where RV and boat, because people essentially, whenever they're not using RVs and boats, they pay to store it somewhere. So my thought was, why not rent out your RV or rent out your boat in the same way you would, I guess there's those apps where people rent out cars or so forth. And I was thinking you could even tie that in with Airbnb in a way, that could almost be like a sub. People usually rent boats whenever they stay at a lakefront house, for example, that has a dock. It just kind of goes. But my teacher, you know, she found that there was like an app already out there on like one lake in America that did something similar, and she just like completely shot down the idea because it wasn't like unique enough. And it kind of goes back to your point where you don't need
That's
a
what they
unique
taught.
idea. You just
Yeah,
need
you
to
don't.
find an idea that needs to be better. And in my opinion of better in that scenario was, why is this not everywhere? If it's so good, why is it only on one lake? And that was at the time, you know, that was like back in 2017, 2018. So I'm sure there's plenty of apps like that now. But at the same time, dude, it doesn't have to be unique. It just has to be in a different angle or pitched in a different way. It could be the
Like
same exact
song.
product.
It's like that song, "Somebody's Watching Me, It's My Anxiety." And all it is just now you're just somebody that I used to know with different lyrics.
Yeah. The Scrub Daddy guy.
Yeah, and also the Airbnb model where these people are literally going to people that own a home and then renting it from them on a 12-year lease and then short-term leasing it to somebody else. Like, you don't even need to own the home to have a rental business.
Yeah,
you don't even need to own a piece of land to have a place where people can store their boats and trailers on. You could rent the land from somebody else and then convert it into it. So like, yeah, I just feel like they really missed the boat on teaching us the concept of making money with low overhead. Instead, they taught us you got to own brick and mortar. You got to spend all this money to even be in the field. You got to pick an industry that doesn't have a lot of players. You got to be first to market. You got to, it's like, no, that's what like macro businesses, that's what CEOs are talking about and creating. But if you're just trying to make money without having a boss, you want to keep your overhead as low as possible. You want to keep your idea as generic as possible. You don't want to come out with something that's untested in the market.
Right.
You want to pick a path that's already been paved.
Yeah, there's a time and place to scale. And then last thing I'll say is the Scrub Daddy guy. He created the Scrub Daddy, you know, that you clean dishes with. That's like a $1 billion plus company now. He originally created it because he was like kind of a gearhead, always working on like cars and so forth, I believe. And he would have like oil and so forth on his hands that he wanted to wash off. And so he like created like this Brillo pad thing that like, you know, he could clean his hands with. And then he went to market with that and it didn't sell anywhere. Like no one would bite on the idea. Like basically gearheads weren't willing to pay whatever price to have like this weird device to clean their hands. So it like sat on his garage shelf for, I believe, years, if not even like a decade or something. And then eventually it came back out and then he like put 2 holes in it for I can't even remember what the holes are for the eyes, but and then he put the mouth in and that was so that he could clean, you know, a spoon properly. And then he started cleaning dishes with it and he was just like, this is what it's for. And then he went to market with that and here we are. So anyways, that same product just pitched in a different way.
Right.
Completely changed it. So I feel like sometimes you can even take an already existing product from another business,
change it slightly,
just point it to a different target market. So
dude, that's all they should have taught me in my business classes is let's look at this business. What are they doing wrong? Let's improve the business. Now we've reevaluated the business from this number to this number. That's what all my classes should have been. I only took one class that was like that, and it was really good. They would give us like a case. We would study it throughout the week, but it wasn't enough. Like I definitely understood like, okay, how to quickly point out this is an issue with this business. This is an issue with this business, but it wasn't nearly enough information on how to improve a business. That's what the majority of my education should have been on. Then I could have used that knowledge to go into whatever direction I was going in. Even from a sales standpoint, understanding business efficiency would have been a game changer.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, Zeke, I got to run, man. It was a good talk. I'll see you next week. See you guys.
All right, brother.
Subscribe for more and like the video and leave us a comment. Peace.
Catch you later.